Hello, and welcome to G Fun Facts Online, the podcast where we break down the science behind the incredible. Today, let's transport ourselves to a packed athletic stadium. The air is electric. Down on the field, a lone athlete stands at the end of a long runway, holding what looks like a modern-day spear. They begin to run, building speed, a picture of focused intensity. Then, in a final, twisting, explosive motion that seems to defy physics, they launch the spear. It rockets into the sky, a silver sliver against the blue, climbing, arching, and seemingly hanging in the air forever before it finally starts its descent, piercing the turf far, far down the field. The measurement comes up, 85 meters. The crowd erupts. An 85-meter javelin throw is more than just a great athletic achievement. It's a benchmark of the elite, a throw that separates the world's best from the legends of the sport. But have you ever stopped to wonder how that's even possible? How does a person using only their own body throw an 800-gram, nearly 9-foot-long object almost the length of a football field? If you think it's just about having a bionic arm, you're only seeing a tiny fraction of the story. The truth is an awe-inspiring symphony of biomechanics, a violent and beautiful ballet where speed, strength, and flawless technique converge in a single explosive moment. Today, we're going to peel back the layers and dissect the anatomy of an 85-meter javelin throw, from the very first step to the final, silent flight. Let's unlock the science of the spear. Our journey begins where every throw does, with the approach run. This initial phase is all about building up a currency of motion, horizontal velocity, that will later be cashed in for throwing distance. It's not a mad dash to the finish line, it's a carefully controlled acceleration. Elite throwers who hit that 85-meter mark typically use an approach of between 26 and 36 meters. Here's the fascinating part. The goal is not to reach their absolute maximum sprinting speed. Why not? Because throwing a javelin requires immense technical precision. Trying to perform the complex throwing motion while running at your absolute top speed would be like trying to thread a needle during an earthquake. Control is paramount. The athlete needs to find the sweet spot, the fastest possible speed they can maintain, while still being able to execute the later phases perfectly. This approach is divided into two parts. The first half is the cyclic acceleration, which looks very much like a standard sprint. The athlete uses powerful, rhythmic strides to build up their speed. The second half is the acyclic or transition phase. This is where the linear sprint starts to morph into the rotational power of the throw, and it's where things get really interesting. This transition phase is a masterclass in coordination, often called the 5-step rhythm. Over these 5 crucial steps, the athlete's body begins to do things that seem counterintuitive. They shift from running straight ahead to a sideways posture, using a series of crossover steps where the back leg crosses over the front one. As they're doing this complicated footwork, they are also performing the javelin withdrawal. The spear is pulled back smoothly, away from the body, until the throwing arm is fully extended, straight and parallel to the ground, with the javelin tip pointing forward in the direction of the run. But the absolute key to this entire phase, the secret sauce of a long throw, is creating what's called hip-shoulder separation. As the crossover steps bring the athlete's hips around to face the direction of the throw, the upper body and shoulders stay rotated back, holding the javelin far behind. This creates an enormous amount of twist and tension through the athlete's core. I want you to imagine stretching a thick, powerful rubber band as far as it can possibly go. The muscles of the torso, the abs, the back, and especially the obliques on the side, are loaded with this stored elastic energy. This pre-tensing of the core is what will be unleashed in the final delivery, creating a whip-like action that dramatically accelerates the javelin. Without this separation, an athlete is just pushing the javelin. With it, they are unleashing a catapult. Now we arrive at the crescendo of the entire movement, the power position, and the final delivery. This all happens in the blink of an eye, but it's where the throw is made or broken. It's centered on the final 2 foot strikes, known as the impulse stride and the block. The athlete lands powerfully on their back foot, the impulse leg, which drives their center of mass forward. But the star of the show is the next step, the block. The athlete slams their front foot down, planting it firmly. This block leg acts like a brake, a wall. The forward momentum of the athlete's entire body, all that speed built up over 30 meters, is suddenly and violently halted. Physics tells us that energy can't be created or destroyed, only transferred. So where does all that kinetic energy go? It's channeled upwards through the body in a sequential wave of motion known as the kinetic chain. It's like a domino effect of power. First, the explosive drive from the legs and hips, which are already rotating forward, initiates the sequence. Second, that stretched rubber band of the torso that we talked about recoils with ferocious speed, whipping the chest and shoulders around. Third, this immense rotational energy flows up into the throwing shoulder, then to the elbow, and in the final, critical milliseconds, to the wrist and hand. Like cracking a whip, each successive segment moves faster than the one before it. The final velocity of the hand holding the javelin is breathtakingly fast. In fact, research shows that the action of the arm in the final 60 milliseconds before release can contribute over 53% of the javelin's total velocity. In this instant, the athlete's body forms a powerful C-shape, or a bow. The front leg is braced, the hips are thrust forward, and the throwing shoulder is pulled way back. This position maximizes the path over which the athlete can apply force, essentially giving them a longer runway to accelerate the javelin before it leaves the hand. The release is the moment of truth. The symphony of movement concludes, and the javelin's fate is sealed by a handful of cold, hard physical parameters. The number one most dominant factor is release velocity. The faster the javelin is moving at the moment it leaves the hand, the farther it will go. It's a nearly perfect relationship. For an 85-meter throw, male athletes are achieving release velocities of 28 to 29 meters per second. To put that in perspective, that's over 100 kilometers an hour, or about 65 miles per hour, comparable to a Major League Baseball fastball, but with a 9-foot spear. Next is the release angle. This is a delicate balancing act. The optimal angle for a javelin is generally between 32 and 37 degrees. If the angle is too high, the javelin flies up like a pop fly in baseball, losing horizontal velocity and stalling in the air. If it's too low, it won't have enough hang time to travel the distance. The thrower must find that perfect window. Then, there's a subtle but crucial factor called the angle of attack. This refers to the javelin's own orientation relative to its flight path. The ideal technique gives the javelin a slightly positive angle of attack, meaning its nose is pointed just a little higher than its direction of travel. This allows the javelin shape to interact with the air, generating aerodynamic lift, much like an airplane's wing. This lift helps it glide and stay in the air for just a fraction of a second longer, squeezing out every last centimeter of distance. So who are these phenomenal athletes capable of this feat? The training regimen to build a human catapult is a highly specialized blend of raw power, explosive speed, and gymnastic coordination. Let's look at the sheer strength required. Elite male throwers hitting the 85-meter mark are putting up some mind-boggling numbers in the weight room. They are expected to back squat 200 kilograms, that's 440 pounds. Their front squat is around 180 kilos or 396 pounds. They can power clean 145 kilos, which is 319 pounds, and bench press 140 kilos or 308 pounds. But it's not just about being strong. It's about being explosively powerful. This is the ability to generate that strength as quickly as humanly possible. This is trained through endless plyometric drills, like bounding and box jumps, and by throwing heavy medicine balls to build rotational power. They are also incredibly fast, with sprint training being a core component of their program. And all of this has to be built on a foundation of supreme flexibility, especially in the shoulders, hips, and torso, to achieve those extreme throwing positions safely, time and time again. Finally, We can't forget the javelin itself. Once it leaves the athlete's hand, it's an exercise in aerodynamics. But the tool of the trade has changed. In 1984, an East German thrower named Uwe Hohn did the unthinkable. At a meet in Berlin, he launched a throw that sailed and sailed, eventually landing at an incredible 104.80 meters. He had literally thrown the javelin beyond the confines of the stadium infield, posing a serious danger to everyone. The sport's governing body knew they had to act. So in 1986, the rules for the men's javelin were changed. The center of gravity of the spear was moved forward by 4 centimeters. This seemingly small change had a massive impact. It caused the javelin to pitch its nose downward earlier and more aggressively during its flight, reducing the gliding effect and shortening the potential distances for safety. This rule change means that the modern javelin is inherently less forgiving. To achieve championship distances today, to reach that 85-meter mark requires an even greater premium on a powerful, technically pristine release to overcome the javelin's built-in tendency to come down. So, the next time you watch a javelin competition and see that spear soar through the air, remember what you're really seeing. It's not just an athlete throwing a stick. It's the culmination of years of dedicated training. It's the perfect alignment of athletic prowess and scientific principle. It is a violent, explosive act, honed and refined into an art form, where every single step, every muscle contraction, and every degree of angle is meticulously optimized in the relentless, beautiful pursuit of distance. Thanks for tuning in to G Fun Facts Online. Join us next time as we dive deep into another amazing piece of our world.